Welcome to the deep dive. Look, if you're an owner-operator or a driver out there right now, you definitely feel it. The ground's shifting under the wheels, hasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It feels like we're at this real pivot point. You've got financial risks, new regulations popping up, massive tech changes. It's a lot.
It really is. It can feel relentless. So our mission for this deep dive is to try and cut through some of that noise. We'll use the sources you send over to figure out what all these pressures mean for you right now.
Right. And ultimately, it's about helping you build some personal resilience. Like
Yeah.
groups such as Life as a Trucker emphasize. It's about empowering yourself,
Yeah.
getting control over your time, and importantly, your income.
That philosophy, succeeding on your own terms, feels, well, crucial right now, especially when so much seems outside your control.
hmm
We've kind of grouped these pressures into like three main areas we need to unpack today. First, the financial squeeze, how you actually get paid.
Yeah, the cash flow crunch.
Second, all the regulatory stuff, new rules, safety crackdowns.
Compliance getting tougher.
And third, that big strategic shift, the whole electrification thing looming.
Okay, let's dive in right where it probably hits hardest first. Cash flow. We're seeing this significant financial pain point. People are calling it the factoring squeeze.
Okay, the factoring squeeze. Let's unpack that.
Mhm.
So we know freight demand is a bit weaker right now. How does that weakness actually translate into payment problems for a driver?
Well, what happens is that weak demand gives shippers and brokers a lot more leverage. So where net 30 days used to be pretty standard for getting paid.
Yeah, that was the norm.
Right, now we're seeing them push hard for net 45, net 75. I mean, even net 90 days sometimes.
Wow, net 90, that's potentially waiting an extra 2 months for your money.
Exactly. Now a driver might think, okay, but I use a factoring company, I still get my cash fast, like in 48 hours. So what's the big deal?
Right, seems like the factor takes the hit, not you directly.
But the problem is the ripple effect. It hits your margin. See, the factoring company absorbs that wait time. When they agree to wait 90 days instead of 30, well, they're basically acting like a short-term lender for a much longer stretch.
And their own financial risk shoots up.
Precisely. Longer wait times mean higher risk for them. So how do they compensate?
They have to charge more, right?
They raise their fees, or they might tighten up the terms in their contracts. Even what seems like a small bump, say a 2% jump in your factoring rate,
Which doesn't sound like a lot on its own.
but it can immediately eat into an already thin margin. It can turn what looked like a decent run into basically a break-even haul, or worse.
Okay, so the takeaway is crystal clear then.
Yeah, absolutely non-negotiable.
Yeah.
You have to review your factoring contracts, like right now, and plan for potentially higher operating costs because of this.
So you're losing cash margin because of these payment cycles getting stretched. And now we need to look at how regulations might be costing you time, creating this sort of double whammy. We're seeing a really good example of this kind of friction with that proposed left lane ban up in Michigan.
Yes, that's a perfect illustration. So the proposal is to ban semi-trucks from using the far left lane on highways that have 3 or more lanes.
And the argument from lawmakers, and probably a lot of car drivers, is that this improves safety and traffic flow, right? Keeps the left lane clear for passing.
That's the claim, yeah. Better flow, maybe fewer interactions between trucks and cars in that lane.
Okay, but let's connect this back to running a business. What's the actual cost to the driver for that perceived safety gain? Is the better flow argument even true for everyone?
Well, maybe in super dense stop-and-go traffic it helps a bit, but for a trucker running long haul, it can be a huge operational headache, a real inefficiency.
How so?
Well, you lose the ability to safely pass a slower vehicle yourself on a 3-lane road. Or, maybe more importantly, you lose an escape route if there's debris or an accident blocking the middle lane.
So you just get stuck behind slower traffic for longer periods.
Exactly. You're stuck. Burning time. Burning extra fuel you didn't need to. Think about it. On a 500-mile run, if you lose even, say, 45 minutes just because you couldn't make safe passes when needed.
That time gets compounded by hours of service rules.
Right. It eats into your available driving time, and it just amplifies that financial squeeze we were just talking about. Less productivity, higher costs.
And that's not even touching the mental load, is it?
Not at all. You're already stressed about making that net 75 payment work, and now you're constantly monitoring traffic, calculating passing risks, worrying about being compliant with yet another state-specific rule. It just adds up.
It really feels like the industry is becoming less forgiving, both financially and operationally. There's less room for error.
That's a good way to put it. That shrinking margin for error leads us right into our next section, This hardline push we're seeing for safety and accountability. And it's coming from industry groups and state governments.
Okay, so who's pushing and what are they asking for?
Well, for one, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association, OAOIA, they've been really vocal lately, calling for, quote, aggressive action to make driver training much stronger.
Stronger how? They're not happy with the current standards.
No, they argue that the current entry-level driver training, the ELDT standards, the minimum requirements for new drivers, they feel they're just not enough.
What do they want instead?
OOIA wants mandatory, verifiable behind-the-wheel training hours, real seat time, properly tracked.
And this ties into that whole debate about the driver shortage, doesn't it?
It directly challenges that narrative.
Yeah.
OOIA's argument is, look, the core problem isn't necessarily a shortage of people willing to try trucking. It's the incredibly high turnover.
Because new drivers aren't prepared enough?
That's the idea. They say undertrained drivers get thrown into this tough environment we've been describing. They burn out fast and they leave. So you have this constant churn of inexperience. Raising the training bar, they believe, is key for retention and overall professionalism.
Okay, so that's pressure from within the industry. But you mentioned state governments, too. We're seeing some really tough legislative action after some tragic accidents.
Absolutely. Look at Florida's Bill SB 86. That was directly triggered by a fatal U-turn crash involving a driver who was found to be non-domiciled.
And this bill signals a major shift in who gets held accountable, right? It's not just the driver anymore.
Exactly. Well, the driver faces immediate consequences like officers are required to take undocumented drivers into custody and hand them over to federal authorities. The really heavy penalties fall on the owner of the truck, the business itself.
Can you walk us through those penalties? They sound severe.
They are. The owner could be looking at a $50,000 fine. The truck itself can be impounded. And potentially, the owner could be completely barred from operating any trucks in Florida, period.
Wow. So this goes way beyond just checking a driver's CDL. It's about the whole operation's legitimacy.
It really is.
Yeah.
And you see that same kind of intense scrutiny playing out in that Indiana case you mentioned earlier.
Right. The one involving a driver in a fatal crash who reportedly didn't have a valid CDL was maybe using a relative suspended one.
And what's really crucial there, context-wise, is the financial background of the company involved.
What was that detail again?
The sources highlighted that two companies linked to this driver had received something like $36,000 in forgiven PPP loans, the COVID-era relief funds.
Why is that relevant?
Because it shows that after a major incident, authorities aren't just looking at the crash itself. They're digging into everything about the operation. Licensing, training, yes, but also financial records, legal compliance. If you've taken federal money, you can bet that paperwork will be under a microscope if something goes wrong.
So the message from state and federal authorities seems pretty blunt. They want total accountability focused on public safety.
Definitely. Now, critics might worry these kinds of measures could unintentionally penalize legitimate operations or shrink the driver pool further.
But for you, the conscientious owner-operator listening right now, the takeaway seems unavoidable.
It is. That margin for error we talked about, operationally, it's basically gone, zero. Compliance, proper documentation, solid, verifiable training. These aren't optional nice-to-haves anymore. They're absolute core business requirements.
Okay, so if we shift gears a bit now, moving from these immediate compliance fires to the longer-term strategic stuff, we have to talk about electrification. It feels like it's gaining real momentum.
It really is. This isn't some far-off sci-fi thing anymore. We're seeing projections, compound annual growth rates as high as 42% in some medium and heavy-duty electric truck segments just over the next decade.
42%, that's huge growth. The electric truck is definitely arriving.
It is. But there's still a major hurdle, especially for Class 8 long haul, and that's charging infrastructure.
Right. You can't just plug these big rigs into the wall at home. Depot charging only gets you so far.
Exactly. You need high-power, reliable charging stations, and they need to be strategically placed along major freight corridors, not just at the home base.
Is that actually happening? Is the infrastructure getting built?
It's starting. We're seeing significant federal support, like the Department of Energy putting, $68 million into supertruck charge projects.
Yeah, I saw that. Designed specifically for heavy vehicle charging infrastructure.
Right. Planning it out, getting it implemented on a large scale. And private companies are jumping in, too. You've got initiatives like Green Lane Infrastructure actively working on building out these dedicated charging corridors on key trucking routes.
So the pieces are starting to move into place to actually make long-haul electric trucking viable, maybe sooner than we thought.
It looks that way. The momentum is building.
Okay, so let's look at the pros and cons for a driver. The opportunity with electric trucks, what's appealing?
Well, the potential upsides are definitely there. Quieter cabs, for one, potentially lower fuel costs
Hmm.
once you get past the initial purchase price, and significantly less maintenance, theoretically, because there are fewer moving parts compared to a diesel engine.
But the risks are still pretty substantial too, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. The initial cost to buy an electric Class 8 is still very high. That's a huge barrier for owner-operators especially.
And then there are the operational concerns.
Right. Still legitimate questions about battery range in all conditions, battery life, overall capacity, and the big one, can the regional electric grids actually handle the massive new demand from thousands of trucks charging at high power? That's a huge question mark.
So what's crucial here, even if you're planning to stick with diesel for the next 5, maybe 10 years?
You still can't ignore this shift. It's strategic. You need to be watching where these electrified corridors are being built
Why? How does that affect a diesel operator?
because it will change things. It'll change service patterns, maybe the types of loads available in certain areas, the demand for different kinds of equipment. It affects the whole ecosystem, even if you're not driving an e-truck yourself. You have to monitor it.
Okay. So we've spent a good chunk of time outlining all this external pressure, right? Freight rates, payment delays, compliance risks getting higher, huge tech disruptions like electrification. It's intense.
It really is. So the big question becomes, what's the internal solution to all this external pain? How do you shield yourself?
It really has to come down to financial resilience, doesn't it? That life as a trucker philosophy seems key here, setting things up so you can get out on your terms.
Exactly. It's about building a financial shield, something strong enough to absorb these unpredictable hits from the freight market or the wider economy or new regulations.
Because when rates are low and your driving time is getting squeezed by rules like left lane bans, you have very little control over that primary income stream.
Very little. So you have to regain control where you can. That's often with your secondary resource, your off-duty time.
We spend so much time managing our on-duty hours for shippers, for brokers, for HOS compliance.
Right. The pivot needed is to start managing that off-duty time just as strategically. Not just for mandatory rest, obviously that's critical, but also for learning new skills, high-value skills, and ideally for building additional streams of income, recurring income.
Recurring income. That's the key, isn't it?
Yeah.
Money coming in month after month, separate from the trucks.
That's the shield. It stabilizes your household finances. It gives you options. It gives you the freedom maybe to choose when you retire rather than being forced out. It gives you leverage if the trucking market dips hard or your main carrier goes under.
And the specific strategy our sources highlighted focuses on using new technology to make this happen.
Yeah, specifically, training truckers as many as possible on how to use AI tools, artificial intelligence, using those tools to create these independent income streams.
Okay, why AI specifically? That might sound intimidating to some folks.
Well, the potential is huge because AI can help automate tasks that used to take a lot of time or specialized knowledge, things that generate high margins, or it can help you access and analyze information incredibly quickly.
Like what, for example? How could a driver use AI?
Okay, think about it. Maybe AI could help analyze load boards way faster than you could manually, finding better opportunities. Or maybe predict potential maintenance issues on your truck before they become breakdowns. It could even help optimize your business accounting or route planning while you're taking your rest break.
So you're leveraging technology to protect yourself financially, not just using tech to drive the rig.
Exactly. And it's actually a really good fit for someone like a trucker who has limited, sometimes unpredictable blocks of off-duty time.
Yeah.
You can use these tools efficiently during those windows.
That really is how you start to future-proof your career, isn't it? Using tech to take back some control over your time and your money, creating income that doesn't depend on whether a broker decides to pay you in 30 days or drags it out to 90.
That's the core idea, building that independent strength.
So if someone's listening and thinking, okay, I want to learn more about this, how do I actually start building that resilience using these tools? Is there a resource?
Yeah, the sources mention one specifically. If you want to dive deeper into this training on using AI for truckers, you can check out retirefromtrucking.com. They apparently offer a free guide and training focused specifically on leveraging AI to build that parallel income stream and plan for retirement.
Good resource to know. Okay, so let's try to wrap this deep dive up. The bottom line seems to be you, the professional driver, you are navigating a seriously volatile environment right now.
No doubt about it. You're dealing with payment delays, hitting your bottom line, new state laws that punish any operational slip-up really heavily, and this massive technological shift towards electrification that you just have to keep an eye on.
And throughout all of this, the need for legitimacy, good documentation, strong safety practices, it's just non-negotiable anymore. That margin for operational error, it's evaporated.
It really has. And look, we know the industry absolutely needs good, conscientious drivers. Drivers who feel respected and, importantly, supported through all this turbulence.
And maybe that support starts with empowering yourself, protecting yourself from all the external chaos. So if we've established that the margin for operational and compliance error is basically zero,
Yeah.
then maybe the final provocative thought for you, the listener, to chew on is this. Your future security really depends on taking control of your off-duty time, using it strategically to diversify your income now.
Because if the industry itself is unstable.
Your stability has to come from your own independent financial strength. That feels like the most powerful strategic shift you can make to truly future-proof your career in trucking today.